welcome. What a wonderful day so far. I am from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So for your afternoon, this is my morning. And so it's been quite an early morning, but it has been wonderful. I am a primary teacher in Saskatoon, and I am the current president of the Saskatchewan Mathematics Teacher Society. And I'm super excited to be here to share with you how to some activities that we can do to engage primary students in online learning. And we know that this year there may be more of that than in the past, but I hope that you can take whatever your school year looks like to take some of these activities that you can do not only online, but then in the classroom as well. If you do have any questions throughout, pop it in the chat and I'll monitor that as well throughout. If I don't get to your question throughout, then make sure you ask it or pop it back in the chat at the end of the session. And so we'll probably do some learning together and some tasks for about 40-45 minutes, and then I'll take some questions if people have before we head on to our next session. So I do like to acknowledge that I am on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis, and we pay our respects to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. And so also acknowledge too the treaty land that you are on as well today. Before we start, usually in a conference, people getting back from lunch, sometimes whether it's having a lunch, I saw on Twitter there, people were in the pool over lunch hour, taking some walks, which is fantastic. And so here I want to start out with just a quick little game that is called Represent. And what I'm going to do is, we know that numbers can be represented in many different ways. And in primary education, we know that it's important for students to understand these different ways to represent numbers. And this will help them later on as they build number sense and going into counting and addition and subtraction and so forth. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly change the slide, and it's going to show two cards. And if you've ever played the game Spot It, you're going to be familiar with this. What you're going to do is try and figure out what number appears on both cards. And so they're going to be represented in different ways. So I'm going to show it, and then it's going to go to a blank screen, and then I'm going to show it again. If you see the number that's represented in both cards, then pop it in the chat. Here we go. All right. So if you saw what numbers, I'm going to do a little bit longer this time. What two numbers appear on both cards? So the thing is with this is, I always say the number can't be broken down, so it has to stay with it. So kids, I mean, that's great. That's where you say, that's awesome. You're starting to break down numbers. But in this game, you can't break down the numbers. It is what it is. So Dwayne's saying 6. 6. And so you might ask students, so how did you see that? And again, building that number sense with different things. All right. So this one here, for upper end, might be some people, there's fractions, ways to represent fractions. And so again, I'm going to show two cards. I'm going to show two cards that you'll have to see what shows up there. Here we go. Pop it in the chat if you know it. Okay, there we go, getting some in. And so this is great. I might do this with with some kids beforehand just to get them started on seeing numbers, kind of like a number routine? But this is different ways to represent numbers and different ways to represent fractions that help students build number sense. Awesome. All right. So as you probably know, I mean, going to online learning, Mike Flynn from the US, he says, you know, that people make the mistake of looking for online learning and kind of tailor their teaching towards that. And so we have to kind of look at it as a teacher and say, it's important to know how you want to teach and then what's out there to help you. And every school division or district is going to be different on what they might mandate you to use, whether it's Office 365, Google Classroom, etc. But it's also looking through those Google apps, and that's what I hope to do today is to be able to see what these things can do and how you might be able to tailor it to your classroom and your students. And so pop in the chat, how do we engage students in the classroom? I think we want our online learning to be similar to what we're doing in the classroom. So what are some things that we're already doing in the classroom that we want to try and transfer to online learning? Pop what you think that you're doing already in the classroom. Right? Seeing group exploration, hands-on, yep, small groups, math discourse, games. Mistakes, face-to-face, absolutely. You know, whether that's one-on-one, whether that's whole group, whether that's small group, real life situations for sure. Especially online learning, what can you do with students that they can do something at home and in real life and bring it to the screen via Google Meet or a picture or a video that they might do. Awesome. So here are some of the things that people have said and mentioned, and again, when I look at my class and how do I prepare for online learning with engaging primary students, which sometimes is obviously a bit more difficult because they may need some support and help with some of the things. But again, I still want to do number talks, and that's small group. That's that face-to-face, get them talking. I still want some math routines, that discourse that was mentioned. Collaboration, how do we get primary students to do that online? We still want rich tasks, real life tasks, problem solving, using games, concrete materials. And then obviously technology is going to be important for the online learning. So I think we've pretty much covered those. But not only that, and maybe, you know, when I went to online earlier this year, again, access and equity was really important for students, and especially being in rural, not everyone had access to internet. Not everyone had access to a printer. And so how can we provide things via USB, you know, via paper copies that then they can send, that they can still maybe then phone in and still be a part of the conversations. So again, that's important because we don't want just online learning to be for people who, you know, have that. How do we maneuver around that? And so again, sometimes what we'll see here too is those who can't make it that day because family situations are all different. How do they still be involved in that classroom discourse, which is so important when they're not there live? And so we'll kind of talk about these things as we go. So let's engage in some tasks. And I'm going to first introduce some that you may not be familiar with, and then we'll go in and try some. And so menu math is an activity or a task that puts constraints on students. And it will allow students openness to solve in many different ways. But then also to kind of nudge by adding constraints for those learners who get it right away or who may need that challenge in that moment. And so that's where these menu tasks have come up. And I'm going to show you one here, and then we'll go in and do it. And there's a bunch of these menu tasks on my website that you'll see, but I'm going to show one, and this is about characteristics of numbers. And what you're going to find is, and again, I do this in the classroom and online, is you give them this to students, and again, now they are trying to write as few numbers that are going to satisfy those constraints. And so right away you see a student might be able to get it with 10 numbers because there's 10 constraints. But then as soon as they get 10, you might ask that student, do you think you could do it in 9 numbers? Do you think you could do it in 8 numbers? And for those students who are gung-ho, it's like, how many numbers? Like, how many few numbers? Can you do it in 1? You know, and that's where you look at it and say, well, which constraints pair nicely and which don't? And as students build relationships in number sense, they might go, well, wait a minute, I know there has to be at least 2. Well, how do you know that? You know, oh, well, I see there's an odd and an even. Oh, interesting, okay. And so again, as you work, and you might be able to work in pairs or in groups, that it's a low floor, high ceiling task. All right. And so what I'm going to do is put into the chat is some links. And again, some might be copies, just so that you have them. But typically in a small group, I might do this all together where we're all working on the same document. And so I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste these. Now they are translated into French as well. All right. So the one that you just saw that I had was just an English PDF. There is a French PDF. But if you wanted to pop in a small group, that would be on the same Jamboard. The copy would be the same thing as a small group, but then just a copy of yours, and you can do what you want with that. But then there's one that also adds base 10 blocks that if people need to build it, they can do that as well. And so just have a look at some of those links. I'm going to head into the one that is a small group. Just so I can show you that there's 2 different kind of setups that I have. And depending on your students, the first one right away, some of it for younger kids, it's like way too much. And I get that. And the thing is why we went to Stickies is because then they can just click it and then write the number in, because some people may not be able to write with a mouse. And so again, they can say, well, I know that it's, 25, and save it. And then what does that constraint satisfy? But again, that's a lot on a screen, especially for some kids in grade 1, 2. So then there's, if you go to Jamboard 4, this is where you kind of have the open-endedness one, where they can write on it. Again, put their name in the sticky note so that if you're doing a small group, I know that this is mine, this is Chad's, and I might be working on it here. And then when we talk about that and say, okay, how do people work together? And feel free, right on the Jamboard, come up with some numbers, what constraints. I can then flip through during the class discussion and say, well, Chad, he had 8 numbers, and these are the constraints. What else did someone else get? And so then you can click and pop over as people put their names in them. The thing is too, is the students don't necessarily have to be live. If you leave this up, they might be able to just come in during the week and pop in there and play with it. And then you might bring it up on a Thursday or a Friday and say, okay, let's look at this menu task. Meanwhile, you might have students who sent you a pic. I can upload that pic in here so that they can be part of the conversation as well, even though they might not be able to have that Jamboard access. And so I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes here and just see how many few numbers can you do in these constraints. Can you get it in 1, 2, 3? And so, Jennifer, are you looking to create a Jamboard right now? Oh, if you're looking to do extras, just expand the bar at the top, and then you can duplicate if you want. If you want exactly what's being shown on my screen and you just want to work by yourself, just in the chat, go to the copy, and then you can select the copy, and this will give you this whole document for you to have. Okay, so Mike says there, done in 2, cannot be done in 1, and that's where you have those conversations. You know, how come, Mike? You know, but then, Mike, what I would ask you to do too is, what constraints do those adhere to? And what constraints is 34 covering? Just so that I can see, other students can see what constraints. And so again, I might say, okay, well, let me see. I'm going to do 25. Now, depending on it, with less people obviously in it, and right now I'm not using my tablet, but I might say 25 and put it on there, and again write and say, okay, that might be, hey, that's double digit, that's less than 50, that's odd, yep, that can be rounded, yeah, it's a multiple. And so then again, it's like, okay, I have to create another number. All right, and if you're seeing in the chat, Mike has put his constraints in for his 2 numbers. And so when I did this with grade 2 students, a student had said, well, what about 33? You know, was that considered single digit? Like, I have the digit, you know, only one single digit in it, but I'm doing it twice. Is that considered a single digit? And so again, a conversation might ensue as a class. Like, I don't know, does it? Like, yeah, you're using only one digit. Is it a single digit number? And so you can see where those who right away, 10 numbers, they can get all of these and then slowly work their way down. Jennifer, I'll get to your question on how to create these for in the future for a class near the end. During the Q&A or such, have it, I can kind of show you how to do that. And so again, you could just slide over if people have their name and so on. And so even if you're doing it and you're kind of doing a hybrid learning, I might just put this up on the projector and everyone has a whiteboard and they're kind of figuring this out. Or again, if students at home have paper and pencil, they might just do it and show it up to the camera if they don't want to write on the Jamboard. So again, you know your students better than anyone else. And so how does this activity work for your students? But I think when we look at tasks that will take 40 to 45 minutes that are open-ended, you know, these number tasks, these menu tasks are great. It allows those entry points and exit points. And again, I might tell Mike, you know, is there another way you can do it? What other numbers can you do? And then Mike might find something real quick again and say, oh, you know, are you seeing a relationship between the 2 numbers that you selected first to the 2 numbers or 3 numbers you selected next? The thing is too, is the one why I included with the base 10 blocks is you might have people who need to build it to see, you know, 3 in the 10s place, see if it's even, see if it's odd, where they might still need those hands-on manipulatives. And in online learning, they may not have them in front of them, but then what can we do to give them those manipulatives online? And this is a way. Let's see here, I'll just share this tab a bit bigger. So Donna, the ones that I circled, that was with my number 25. Mike, yeah, I can go into a big long explanation as to why. Hey, there you go. All right. So someone had mentioned before too, how do we, manipulatives important, hands-on for students now and online, how does that work? And so obviously there's some great sites out there that are online manipulatives that obviously we can use and students can use. And how does that work in a classroom? And so I've kind of figured out a couple ways. And there's two kind of differences. One is when sometimes you use the online manipulatives that are already out there, you can't see students work in them in real time. So what I mean by that is if a student's working with base 10 blocks, they might be able to send me a picture or a link of the base 10 blocks while they're after they're working, but I can't see them manipulate it during it in real time. And so that's where I've created some either in the Jamboard or in Google Slides so that I can, again, just like I could with the last activity, see students working on some activities. And so I'm going to show first with the activities just with an online one. And this is through Math Learning Center. There are a bunch of other ones with it. And so I'm going to put in the chat, there's two ways that you can do it and have students access the online manipulatives. If you click the first link, that's going to get you right to the activity. And so again, manipulatives. Well, children may not have necessarily some manipulatives at home unless you create something for them or they're getting some beans or getting some things around the house. Here might be a patterning task with online manipulatives where if the first one you just click the link, you're going to get to right to this screen where everyone can manipulate it. Or secondly, you are going to get to just the main screen, and this key down here is where you're going to put the key code. So that's where you would put the 9 AEYARNA. And again, if you open it up, that again will get you to exactly what it is. And so then for here, basically what you can do is, again, continue the pattern, dragging the items, whatever you need to do. And once students have done that, again, I can't see what you're doing, but depending on how you set your classroom up, sometimes it's a spreadsheet that they might click the link. So if I'm going to go down here to the share, they can either save the image and send it, they can copy the link, or they can send me this code. And so sometimes they put it into a spreadsheet, sometimes they put it into Google Classroom on the stream, or sometimes they might put into a Google Doc, however you see fit. But again, if you click down here to the share button, then either the link or the display code. And so if someone has a pattern already created and wants to share, pop in the display code into the chat, and then we can kind of see a finished product of continuing that pattern. So go ahead right now if you haven't, complete the pattern. And then if you have, someone wants to share their key code, and then I can kind of display it and put it up and see kind of what it looks like. Give you some time to play with it there. And again, this is where you might have students creating their own patterns. And so instead of continuing the pattern, it might be create your own or write the pattern rule. All right. So with the second link, Jacqueline, did you type in the key code? Oh, you know why? I see it has with it. Okay, let me just change that. I see I added some extra on it. half a minute. All right, will that work with the link? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so Nikki sent thing here. So Nikki sent the link. So again, if I just click the link, this is Nikki's pattern that was continued. And so that was by the link. If I want to go to, someone had given a shared work, I'll put the code in here, 3YQPQTU. Obviously the pattern looks the same, but as you can see, it's a bit different here than the previous one. So again, either putting in that key code or the link for it. And so if they put it in a spreadsheet, if they want to put it in the Google chat, in the Meet, whatever it might be, again, the only downside with this is I can't see you create in real time. And so that's what I found with some of these online things, especially when I need to see students, what they're doing, and maybe I'm on a chat with them so that I can ask them questions as they're going, like, why would that go there? What do you think? That type of thing for it. And so in this, you may say, okay, well, we have here, if I'm looking at it, is this pattern correct? And we talk about that. And so what I've done, and we'll go to next, is I've created some of these where we can see students working in real time using either the Jamboard or Google Slides. Are there any questions in regards to sharing the work, putting in the key code for this before I move on? This is a free site, you bet. So this is the mathlearningcenter.org site. And maybe I'll just, I'll go to the main site here. So they have a bunch. And you'll see, we'll use one in another activity. But these are all the free apps. And again, these are the ones that are shareable. Number frames, number line, number rack, fractions, etc. So again, even if you go in number frames, and that's how I created it, I just didn't use the number frames, and you open the web app, you can start to manipulate. And maybe I want a 10 frame. And again, as soon as I do this, I click this, it's going to be a link and a code. The one thing to remember though is as soon as I change something and I put this dot here and I go to share it, it's a whole new code. So when you deliver a code to your class or a link, they're only going to get what you've done. If they start to manipulate it, they have to share the code. If you add something to it or take it away, it's going to be a whole new link and a whole new code. So that's a thing to keep in mind with this site. So that's that site there. So what I've done is I like to see students working in real time. And I'm going to put a link in now to show you how we can engage our primary kids online. And what I've done, because the number, Jamboards only allow 20 Jamboards. And so for this, I'm going to just put in the link copies. One is of a Jamboard and one is of a slide. And so I've made these and I'll show you kind of at the end where they are. And Here we go. So this is the one in slides. And so again, if you want each kid to have their own slide, and then again, you can see them working in it. And so if they're going to drag a pattern block over, they might be able to create their own pattern however they want. And so if I'm in this document, I can see students working in real time with this. And so I might add, continue the pattern, or, create an increasing pattern, create a decreasing pattern with these pattern blocks. You might have each individual kid per slide putting their name on it. And then again, I can then go to a slide and say, well, let's all figure out what the pattern rule is for Susan. And we could go to that slide, or I could show it on like I am right now for this. And so the difference between the ones online versus this is, again, I can see kids. I can talk to them. If I'm doing one-on-one, then I'm going to be able to just work with them. So what I've done is, when you have them, I've just put multiple blocks on top of each other. And so what I do is, basically, I might take a shape, I will copy it, and I will paste them many times. And then what I would do is click them all, and then I would align them center, align them vertically, and now I have them here that if I take one off the top, I have another, and another, and another. And so that's how I do that. So just duplicate them. And then again, it's align them vertically, align them center, and then you have them multiple times like this. And so I have slides like this created for base 10 blocks, double-sided counters, patterns, Cuisenaire rods, that again, I can have students working with them either individually, in a small group, on their own, for this, where again, I can see them working in real time. They can add text, just some things like that, different than the online manipulative ones. And so in the Jamboard, I'll head to the Jamboard here. So again, I've made these copies, so hopefully they'll appear in your Google Drive if you want to manipulate them, change them, however it might be. Again, I'll show you at the end of the presentation where you can find more of them. And so here you might have kids put their name, extend the pattern. And again, what I did was I just put them on top of each other. Now, the downside to Jamboard is, when I copy one and I duplicate, I cannot align vertically. So what I had to do was I had to drag every single one to put them over top of one another, which is a bit time consuming to put it in Jamboard. So yeah, so Donna, what I would do is I would just share, not a copy, but I would share the link. And then what I would do up here is I would then duplicate, and it would duplicate the slide. And then as students come into work, they click one that doesn't have a name on it. They might switch it out, save, and then now students know this one is taken, go find another one. Same thing with the slides. If I'm doing slides, what I might do is then duplicate. And then what I would have is have a box in here for students to put their name. So then they know whose is it. And so if they already have one, then there. Now, as a teacher, I, in a small group, will sometimes have their names already there because, again, some students might have different questions. And so they know, they go to their slide. Oh, that's mine. Okay, there might be a question on it. Here's some manipulatives to work with. So again, not everyone's going to get the same question. In that small group, there might be different questions and they go to their slide. And so then during those small group activities, I can then take, a strategy that's least efficient with something and maybe connect it with another student's, but all in that same small group as we build on their skills. And so again, you can make however you want, but this is kind of a good starting point if you wanted shapes, patterns, colors for online manipulatives that you can use in your class and share with your students. Any questions on those before we move on? Okay. And so again, we're not going to jump into it, but I'll show you. This might be one, again, going to that math learning app site where you have the number pieces here. And again, I might key in the code. And the code for this next activity, let me get here. And if they just put that code in, everyone would get to this. And it's build me 47 two ways. And so again, as students manipulate these, they might drag them on and however they might do it. And once they're done, then they might just click the share and sure, I'll share the direct link for this base 10 block activity. And they might just copy the link or they might just give me the code and then other students can go to it. Now, again, as soon as you click that, you're not going to see what I've done. You're just going to have a blank and it has the question on it. And so then as students go, they might, again, build 47 two ways. So I'm going to build it here with 3 10s and 17 ones. And I have it here. And again, I'm not going to put them all on, but have 17 ones with it. They send it back. We can compare. We can see how they might relate to other people's. Did someone do 47 ones? Whoa, did that take a long time? Yeah, okay. So then, unitizing might be important instead of just working with ones. And so with that, we won't spend too much time with it, but again, I have top one is the Jamboard. Bottom one is a slides, and I'll go to the slides one. And again, these are left to be open on purpose without too much so that you can change how you see fit. And so again, you might have it. And just like I did before, they might drag them over and build the numbers. So sometimes I'll make slides and say, what is this number? Right? I might show it to you in base 10 blocks. Can you write it down? And so we have those. All right. Any questions on those? So those are online manipulatives, how you might be able to use them in slides, in Jamboard, or into the online apps. Before we move on into ThreeAct Tasks. And again, if there are any questions afterwards, I'll leave my email. I know that an hour isn't lots of time to dive into some of these things, but I felt that these 3 things were really important in my classroom to engage primary students. And so that's why I want to pass these along to you. So Nikki, in the slides, if they are allowed to become editors, so when I share it with my students, I'll share it with anyone and they can edit. And then if we're all working in the same document, I'll be able to see that. And I'll be able to see what they're doing. With the online manipulatives, I won't be able to. They'll just have to send me their code or their link. And then I'll only be able to see the product. And that's why I've created these in slides in Jamboard so that I can see a student pop up. So just like maybe you saw earlier when we were all in the same Jamboard activity, little circles would appear right here. And then that would be your students in the class. And then you could see them do that. So these the base 10 block slides, what I did was I ended up creating finding the base 10 blocks online and then just cropping them and saving them as a picture and then uploading them into Google Slides and then copy them and then again center them and then they have a bunch there to use. It doesn't necessarily have to be a transparent image. But what I've done is I've uploaded them as pictures. So if you try and copy paste, sometimes they don't come in well. So I've saved them as pictures and uploaded them into Google Slides as pictures. But again, yeah, any transparent image, you just have to play around with some of the images as you find them. And so I will, when searching for images, I'll usually ones that you can reuse. You know, keeping in mind of copyright. So I'll look at ones that you can reuse and also too, you can click an option if you're searching for images to see if you can reuse and modify. And then it'll only pop up those images that allow you to do that. Yeah, exactly it. Copy, paste, screenshot, and then you can put it in there. And then again, copy, duplicate, and then you can create them. So again, it's just an easy way to create ones where you can see students working online. And so the last one here I'm going to pop in is ThreeAct Tasks. I'll just give a brief overview. ThreeAct Tasks is where you may start with a task, usually a video, and then you have students watch that video. And so here are some that I have on my site. So they watch the act. Then you might ask them questions. What do you notice? What do you wonder? You might have a question that they're going to try and answer. And then as you move on, they might need some information. And then you go further on into Act 3, which might show you how it's solved. So this is just on the website. You scroll down. I have a bunch. Graham Fletcher, Dan Meyer. He was the one that started ThreeAct Tasks. But again, it just gets students in by seeing the visual, seeing that. So if you want, and I'm doing a small group on Google Meets like this, I might just use my website because we're all here in real time. If we're not all in real time, I might do Act 1 on Monday, give students time, and then I might do Act 2 on Wednesday, and then Act 3 on Friday. And so I'm putting them in the chat here where these are all in Google Docs. So students might go to this one here, and I'll share it. Roll them down, and here they can add. So here the link, and it'll take you. I've put them all in SafeTube links. And here we go. Let's watch Act 1. So that's Act 1. And so we would get students then to go into the document and get them to put down, what do you notice? What do you wonder? And so someone's already put in, Chad put in, why were the dice 2 different colors? You know, and again, everyone, you can see at the top, people are all in this document. And so again, feel free, if you have something, toss it in. What did you notice? What are you wondering on just Act 1? And so again, students don't necessarily have to be with you in that day. They can watch it whenever and come to this document and edit it and type in. And so as you see people typing in, you know, you might have to go to a different line or whatever it might be. So you can do this in real time, or again, busy at home with a family. They're not going to get to it while you're doing it live. It gives them Monday and Tuesday to do Act 1. And so this is great. Then you can go through it with a class. Students who aren't there that day can go through and read them and see, oh, that's what Donna thinks? What happens if you roll the same number? And so then these are all these things. So even though they're not there live during it, it seems like they were by reading these and engaging in these. And so you might then on Wednesday during your live session do Act 2. And then Friday do Act 3. And so I'm going to pop over and do Act 2. And so now again, you might show them this. Okay, so they saw that 10 was knocked down. So they are then now going to have to, now depending on what you want to do, you can do it in a Jamboard, you can just do it on your own Google Meet. But now it might be, okay, what could the dice have been to knock down 10? How do you know? Can you show it? Can you prove it? So I might have a Jamboard created. You might have them doing it on paper and pencil and sharing pictures. You might have them doing it on Google Slides, whatever you want to do. Now they're starting to work through the problem. Okay, well, I knew that 10 was knocked down. Okay, so what could the dice be? And so I might be using this to combinations to 10 with the constraint that your dice only go to 6. So you might have students go, oh yeah, 7 and 3. And again, that can lead to that conversation. So wait a minute, like a standard die, how many numbers on? Oh yeah, right, it doesn't have 7. And then moving along to Act 3, where you might show it on, so give them Wednesday and Thursday. And then on Friday, you might give them the Act 3 solution and then talk about it, which would look something like this. And so we reveal that it's a 6 and a 4. And so sometimes too, it's like, well, wait a minute, wasn't the 6 already used? And then again, you can talk about it and say, yeah, that's okay, because it wasn't used by itself. It was used with another number. And so then that's where you would have the opportunity where students then, I would bring in that game and have students play that game where they're rolling the dice. Either they add the numbers together and knock it down. They can either use both dice together or the dice separately. And as soon as they have a number that's already knocked down and they can't do anything, then their turn's over. And so can you knock down all 11 numbers in one turn? And so that's called Juka, an old game. Also goes by the name of, what is it? In the box, or shut the box rather, where you're trying to shut the box with the numbers and putting them down. So again, a 3-act task can be done as a small group, live, or you just give them the links on Monday, do Act 1, Wednesday, Act 2, and give them 2 days to do that, and then Friday might be Act 3 and the final reveal, and then you talk about those things. So again, seeing that visual, having those conversations, being able to do one-on-one, small group, or whole class. So all those things that we talked about, what is good that we want in class, online, are available in these tasks: the menu tasks, the online manipulative tasks, and the 3-act tasks. I know I threw a lot at you in an hour, but I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to see these 3 things, how they can be integrated online using Google Apps, using the Google Classroom, to engage primary students. Because sometimes we think that primary students can't engage in high-level thinking, and they can. It's just the tasks that you might put in front of them. And these are 3 opportunities to do that. Some Chrome extensions that I like. Now, if you look at the my handout, you'll see this push to talk. This one basically allows the kids to press the space bar. And so I have students install it because oftentimes they can't mute and they're trying to find the mute button. Push to talk, they just press space bar. Boom, mute, unmute. And so you're going to see I'm going to press it, space bar, and space bar again. And so that's mute on and off. The speech to text, I'm going to head back into, let's see, this one here. Because you know what? Again, access and equity. I have a student, writing is not going to work. So you download the speech to text. And what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to have to, I'm going to share my whole window so that you can see. You'll see the apps. All right. And I'm going to go in here. So this is mute. So this is the speech to text up top here, the microphone. And again, it's in the slides and in the thing. So I need a student is not great at typing. He's going to press it. It comes up to this. You can't see it right now, but it's a microphone. Hold on here. Let me, because this is really important for students to use. So I'm going to push speech to text, and this comes up. So I'm going to say, I noticed that there were 2 colors of dice. They stop it. Then all you have to, again, just routine, Command C, copy it, go to the document, paste it. And so again, someone who might not type can talk into it. And people always say, well, Chad, like you can't get a grade 1 student to do that. You know, and I say, well, wait a minute. It's all about routine. At the start of the year, are you going to have kids work on that? We have kids work on putting books back in our classroom libraries properly. And you would think, well, why are you spending time on that? It's that routine. Kids need to know how to do those things. And so again, if you do it and they have, you know, you spend the first week just on some of these things, then students will get it from here on out. The last one that works in Google Classroom and in Google Docs is this one. It's called Moat. And I'm going to press Moat because what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a comment. And what Moat does is it allows me to do it verbally. What color were the dice, Chad? And so I'm going to see if I actually did it correctly. What color were the dice, Chad? It's like, perfect. I like that. And so then I'm going to comment it, and they can see it here, and then they can just play it. This works in Google Classroom as well when you're doing notes or comments on things that they hand in. And so oftentimes, again, it shows it, but then also they hear your voice. So it might be when you're talking about them responding to something, it's nice to hear their voice, but also read it as well. So this is called Moat. All right. I see my time's cutting short, but I want to make sure I get to some other things here. All right. And so that's speech to text was the one that I had. Moat is the one where you can put the verbal ones, and then it's a Chrome extension, Mike, that works in Google Classroom and Google Docs and all that. So as soon as you get into something that has it, I mean, it'll pop up, and you can put those notes in. And then the last one, Screencastify. Really important that if you're going to do videos showing something, that also Screencastify allows to show your face as well on it. So that's important for teachers to use so that they can see the face as you're doing the video instead of just a screen. If you go into the notes for this presentation, there'll be actually links to videos about all the extensions for that. All right. Yes, 15-minute limit, Corey, for screencast. So again, if you're going over that, kids aren't going to be engaged in that. So again, that's great for the time limit as well. Any questions? I have this up. Thank you so much. There are many things on the Beyond the Algorithm site. Tasks, ThreeAct Tasks, menu math. So have a look at that for resources. It also links to other sites that might be number routines, classroom resources. The notes, I believe I submitted them to the committee, and I think they're going to be posting them with the video, I'm assuming. If not, I'll have them posted on my website as well under presentations that you'll be able to find them as well.
Yes, on the main page where the website that you saw the schedule, there's a section called slides, and there will be all of the slides. And sometime in the fall, once they've done post video editing to tidy them up, all these recordings will also be available.
So if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Cadillac60 or at chat@BeyondTheAlgorithm. Have a look at the website. And again, if you enjoyed the kind of opening game at the start, those are some games that I've created called Represent. And those can be done small group, big class, or individually that come with activity mats that can be found at representgame.com. If you're interested in that as well, I'll just type that in. For you. But other than that, thank you so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your conference and look forward to learning with you some more. And again, feel free to reach out to continue the conversations via email or Twitter.